back, and he took away the right of the oblasts to elect their own governors. But he's restored that. I mean, this is one of the things. This is one of the things that, you know, he isn't given credit for. He's not given credit for introducing trial by jury into the Russian legal system. Now, of course, the jurors always support the prosecution, and therefore it's very, very hard to get the idea of a jury system actually working. But Putin did start that. There's still, you know, there's still a lot of telephone judges. I don't know whether you've seen this a very good film called Leviathan that's recently been released on how the Russian judiciary works when there's a big oligarch that wants something done. Very bleak, but very, very evocative. On the military cooperation, you know, there are two stories. I mean, of course, the Russians objected very much when the Americans set up their anti-ballistic system in the mid-2000s and said, well, you know, it's in Czechoslovakia, it's in Poland, but it's aimed at Islamic terrorists. Nothing to do with, not at all hostile to Russia. Now, what are the Russians to believe when that happens? There is the intermediate nuclear weapons treaty, which the Russians said the application of which the Russians said they would suspend in 2007, I think. But that can be revived. And everything hinges, everything is possible in my view, if the West creates a system that makes it impossible or impracticable for Ukraine to join NATO. It can be done in different ways. It can be done by treaty. It can be done through various arms deals which prevent forces from being near borders. That can all happen. But I mean, the West has got to bite that bullet and say, okay, this is not the free choice of an independent state. This state, for better or for worse, for geography, history, is going to be somewhat in the Russian sphere. And the Russians are therefore going to have some say in its choices of security system. That's all. Now, if that can be reconciled with Western legalism and moralism, as George Kennan says is very difficult to do, you can solve this problem. If it can't be, then it's going to drag on. And then the Russians will want to keep that situation frozen, as it now is, because that will make it de facto impossible for Ukraine to join NATO. All sounds simple, doesn't it?
Robert, brilliant discussion. I want you to be more specific about the role of Europe here, because you've cast this as an American-Russian conflict, and it seems to me that the Brits, the French, and most particularly the Germans have a role to play in this, in modulating the behavior of both of these two parties. Talk about that.
Yeah. I think the Brits, I mean, it doesn't give me very much satisfaction to say this, but the British are essentially satellites of the United States. They simply do what the United States tells them to. And the Germans are not. The Germans are more independent, and therefore they have a better relationship with Russia. Putin-Merkel relationship is quite strained. They have had conversations, and some of those conversations have been taken down. People have listened to them. And one of them was recently, Merkel said, well, you've got to sort of stop supporting the separatists, and Putin says, well, you've got to stop expanding NATO. And then they say, well, we can talk about this. They agree. And then she says, what about the Crimea? I mean, the Crimea is not accepted simply as a done deed in Europe. So that's going to be a problem. I think it can probably be arranged in some way to make it retrospectively all right, but it's not going to be easy. There's got to be a lot of goodwill on that. Europe is... there is a European interest in a stable and friendly Russia that there isn't an American interest. The interests aren't quite coincident. I mean, there is a strong American security interest. I mean, Russia is the other major nuclear power, and some arms control, arms limitation, arms reduction agreement is absolutely necessary to getting a peace dividend out of the end of the Cold War, which we thought we were going to get and now has vanished, or receded almost to vanishing point. So there is an important American relationship with Russia. The European relationship is more direct. The Russians aren't going to turn off the gas tap, but the Russians, this is one of the reasons why Russia doesn't reform its system. It is prepared to use energy as a geopolitical weapon. There's no doubt about that. And it's what gives the Russians some leverage in their relations with Europe. And that's a great power thing. I think actually there should be a decent relationship between the Russians and the European Union. I think Germany is the key. You know, there are wonderful stories told about how Merkel and Putin have got on and not got on. Apparently very, very early on. Apparently Angela Merkel is very allergic to dogs. You know the dog story. The dog story. And at one of her first meetings with Putin, or a meeting some time ago, they were on the stage with Putin's dog there as well. And she was terrified. She became very ill, and she always held it against Putin that he introduced his dog into the meeting, because anyway, these are all, who knows how important they are. Broadly speaking, she's been his main friend in Europe, and there is a sort of fairly close Russian-German relationship, but it's strained at the moment.
One more quick question.
Okay.
Do you think that the American military-industrial complex actually needs enemies in order to sustain itself? It would be very difficult for the American economy not to have some potential enemies out there in the world, don't you think?
Yeah, I think that's always a very interesting question. That is the relationship between ideas, policies, interests. I was reading the other day a fascinating book, which I hadn't come across before, called The Samuelson Sampler. And it's a collection of Paul Samuelson's columns for Newsweek between 1966 and 1973. And he says, look, I keep debating this point with Marxists. They say the only thing that really keeps full employment in the West is military spending. And without that, America would be in permanent slump. And he says, of course, this is nonsense. He says, economic science knows how to maintain full employment without having to spend it on armaments, which is a good answer. I think he would be less confident that economic science had cracked this problem for all time than he was back in 1970. By economic science, he meant the new economics. By the new economics, he meant Keynesian economics. But even so, it wasn't a complete answer, because although logically there's no requirement, you don't have to spend a lot of money on arms in order to maintain a growing full employment economy. There's no logical necessity to do it. When you look at the tolerances for spending in the United States, you find that basically they don't mind military spending. In fact, they like military spending, even the Republicans, and they're perfectly prepared to have large deficits, provided those deficits go on security, are given a security justification. In fact, since the 1980s, there's never been a balanced budget in the United States except for 3 years under Clinton. They've always been in deficits, and George Bush Jr. said, well, no, when you've got a security problem, you have to have a deficit. I mean, so the answer is, in real terms, the military-industrial complex does drive the direction of US federal spending.
Turned into a fascinating, riveting seminar, and for that I want to thank you, Robert, thank the audience, suggest another round of applause if you don't mind. It did occur to me that I could propose a ready solution to the Ukraine problem. And that is that, given the presence of two of our distinguished guests here, that we could get an agreement that Ukraine would stay out of NATO. And then if Alicia and Henia would take care of it, we could have a corresponding agreement that Mexico would not join the Shanghai Cooperation Council. Done! What can you say? If there were ever gains from trade, it seems to me that that's where they are. I'm also on the subject of dogs in Russia, compelled to tell another old family story, which is that in 1956, my father was in Soviet Central Asia and got bitten by a dog. Russian doctor says, you don't need rabies shots, we have no rabies in Soviet Union. But you'd better get rabies shots, we are very close to Chinese frontier. So he started taking the very painful shots to the stomach and went back to Moscow on the agreement that if the dog were caught and they tested and shown not to have rabies, they would send him a telegram that said the dog is well, had rabies, they'd send him a telegram that said the dog is sick. No telegram ever came. And I suppose it was Menshikov at the academy who said, you know, in the Soviet Union, an American professor is never going to receive a telegram that says the dog is sick or the dog is well. Well, this is, I think, brings to a close what is actually the 20th of our, and I'm surprised that in an audience of economists, no one corrected me on that point.
Well, we hadn't had the dinner when you first announced.
Right, that is true. That does not, that is called a finessing of, otherwise might have been a miscount of embarrassing proportions. Nevertheless, the 20th, a really quite sensational evening, as I think we all appreciate, and something which gives this organization a very renewed sense of purpose, but also, given some of the things you said, of the possibilities that we might, as professionals, as economists, and as public citizens, be pursuing in the discussions in the months and years ahead. I want to, as I always do, close by offering my very deepest thanks to this rather remarkable group of people with whom I've been associated for a very long time. We have one of our trustees here, Joe Stiglitz. We have our directors. There's Linda Bilmes, Richard Parker, who particular shout out for going above and beyond to get this program on track. Let's see, amongst the other directors, my vice chair and longtime, let's say, co-conspirator going back to, my God, my days as an undergraduate, and his early days on the Joint Economic Committee, and a long time collaboration, and a representative here of Ukrainian ancestry, Richard Kaufman. Thank you all, and let me then turn and offer really special and profound thanks to the two people who keep EPS on the level and very much make our lives not only easy but possible as part of this organization. Ellie Warren and our director, Tay Harvey. And finally, thank you all. These evenings are really a chance for people who are close to this group to see each other and to experience the importance of being part of this organization, which really does have a significant role inside the economics profession, both in the United States, and we have a number of our international friends and affiliates here tonight around the world. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, pleasure.